celebration for NAMI Metro Baltimore. I'm Danielle Clark, a NAMI Metro Baltimore board member, and it is my pleasure to be a part of this program tonight, where we honor the many people who have helped NAMI Metro Baltimore grow into its vibrant organization that it is today. We are going to share with you some powerful stories of people whose lives have been affected by their experience with mental illness. You'll hear from both family members and also people who themselves have experienced mental illness. I had a chance to hear some of the presentations last night, and I'm sure you're going to be moved by the powerful testimonies that you hear tonight. NAMI Metro Baltimore is a grassroots organization dedicated to helping those with mental illness and their loved ones. We originated around the kitchen table with a group of parents who were struggling to find help for their kids who experience mental illness. So tonight, I'm pleased to say that one of the founders is here with us tonight. I'm not sure you're going to be able to see her, but if Mrs. Frances Lentz, can you raise your hand or stand for her? Fellow parents were struggling. They were struggling because there was resources for their children, but there were very few, if any, resources for parents and families. There was no guidebook that they could follow. So they felt isolated and alone and thought that if they could find strength in each other, and so they could share resources and share ideas. So they band together to form a group that met once a month and shared their stories and offered support to one another. As many as 70 parents attended each session. As Frances said, coming together with other parents was a way to do something when facing the often frustrating challenges of having a loved one with mental illness. So the group of parents, not yet affiliated with NAMI, worked with the Baltimore City Health Department and other agencies to create a resource directory for families who had loved ones with mental illness. They created a helpline, and then thanks to the energetic volunteers, they promoted the helpline on billboards throughout Baltimore. They found that there was a huge need for family support. As the group grew and became more sophisticated, they learned about NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness. The leadership recognized that they were strong in numbers, and by affiliating with the national organization, which was committed to serving people with mental illness and their loved ones at a grassroots level, they could accomplish much more. So, NAMI Metro Baltimore was created and born 35 years ago. Today, we are the largest NAMI chapter in Maryland, and among the largest and most active in the country. NAMI Metro Baltimore first piloted new programs such as In Our Voice before they were rolled out to the other affiliates nationally. Several programs have been created here in Baltimore, such as Virtual Voices and Caregiver Circle. We have grown to serve more than 9,000 people each year, and with the support of 270 dedicated volunteers. People at our office in Towson and in programs in neighborhoods across Baltimore City and County. It's because we know that making the programs accessible to all is important. NAMI Metro Baltimore's programs include peer support, such as peer-to-peer, an 8-week program that walks people through the experience of mental illness. They're led by volunteers who have also traveled that road. The program helps people, particularly those who are newly diagnosed, see and learn from others who are just like them. In the last year, we also began offering a Connections Recovery Support Group, specifically for our young adults to learn from their peers their own age. NAMI Metro Baltimore supports families through its NAMI Basics to help family members understand what having a loved one with mental illness means, and to also provide one another support, just like Frances and her group of parents did years ago. And because there is so much misinformation and stereotyping of mental illness, we offer In Our Own Voices, a program where people with mental illness share their stories with groups to help them understand what those with mental illness need. We also offer Virtual Voices, a program that simulates audio hallucination that a person living with mental illness may at times experience. We offer this critical training for law enforcement in our area so that individuals in crises are met first with compassion and understanding. We are very fortunate to have such valuable resources right here in our community. Do you agree with me? So now I would like to introduce to you several individuals who are important to NAMI Metro Baltimore and who were instrumental in making the evening program possible. First, I would like to introduce to you Steve Spera. He's a board member and a co-chair for this event tonight. Also with him will be Brendan Lau. He's also a board member and the co-chair for tonight's events. Brendan and Steve worked with the committee for months to bring this event to fruition, and we are very grateful for both of them and their hard work and creativity. Finally, I would like to introduce to you Larry Kahn. Larry is the NAMI Metro Baltimore Chair, and as board members, all three of them, as well as the entire NAMI Metro board members, volunteer countless hours of their time to help NAMI Metro Baltimore be a strong, vibrant organization. Will the other board members that are here tonight please raise their hand so we can recognize you and thank you for your dedication. With that, I would like to turn it over to Steve, and he's going to talk to you about our evening sponsors.
Thank you, Danelle. You know, it's been a great privilege to serve on NAMI Baltimore's Board of Directors and see the impact that these programs have on the lives of so many people. NAMI Metro Baltimore depends on support from the community to provide the programs that you just heard about to the community at no cost to the participants. We are committed to making support to individuals and families who are experiencing mental illness accessible without a financial barrier. So we're very grateful to everyone who supports this work. I especially want to thank the sponsors of this evening's program. Without their generosity, we would not be able to host this celebration of our 35th anniversary. There's a full list of our sponsors in your program, but I want to give special thanks to the following sponsors. And if you're associated with one of the companies, please stand when I read your company's name. Our lead spotlight sponsor, Jones Lang LaSalle, for making this event possible. Creative Print Group, who so generously donated this evening's programs, and as you can see, just a wonderful program. We're also grateful to our media sponsor, Baltimore Magazine, for bringing awareness to this important milestone event. And also want to thank French Paradox Wines, who provided all of the wine and beer for our reception this evening. Thank you so much, sponsors. We really appreciate it. So their involvement means so much to us and to the thousands of lives NAMI Baltimore touches every year. Now please join me in welcoming my co-chair, Brendan Lau.
Thanks, Steve. As Steve said, it's been a real honor to be part of NAMI Metro Baltimore and work on this event. And as with any project of this size, it takes a great team of people working together to make it happen. So while their names are in the program, I would like to take a minute to recognize the other members of the 35th Anniversary Event Committee. It actually took us a year, not a few months, but you have generously given of your time to help us make tonight's event possible. Whether it was contacting sponsors, providing ideas, or helping with a number of other logistical arrangements, Steve and I are indebted to you for your time. Would the committee please stand up to be recognized for a moment? Now I'm pleased to introduce the NAMI Metro Baltimore Board Chair, Larry Conley.
Thanks so much, Brendan, and thanks to all of you guys for coming out, especially braving tonight's weather, or, as Mr. Trump may have put it, one of the wettest from the standpoint of water. I'm truly fortunate and humbled to be standing here this evening. I happen to be board chair during this important anniversary year, but it's the work of so many people, our wonderful board, so many volunteers, donors, and our community partners, past and present, who have made our 35 years possible. So give yourself a hand. I'm going to take just a couple minutes to recognize a few of them who've played some particularly important roles. Again, I want to thank Frances Lenz. She served as our first board chair. She brought her vision and her endless energy to launch our organization. And Frances was a social worker. When her son, who was bright, athletic, had a promising future, unfortunately began to show the signs of mental illness when he reached age 20. Frances devoted herself to finding care for her son and support for herself and other parents. Today, her son is 60 years old, lives independently despite his condition, and it's really to people like Frances that started this, and we owe so much gratitude. Let's have a round of applause. Again, I want to thank the hundreds of NAMI volunteers. In the last 4 years, we've tripled the number of active volunteers out doing our program, which is just a tremendous accomplishment by Sherry Welsh and her staff, and our dedicated board who gives so much time to make NAMI Baltimore strong. And of those who are here, I'd like to recognize the prior board presidents of NAMI Baltimore. Mike Teitelbaum, please stand up. As you'll see, you're going to be seeing Mike again as part of our formal show. Pamela Scott Johnson, is Pam here tonight? Well, thank you, Pam, for your service. Scott Graham, I know he couldn't make it tonight, but he was a tremendous worker and really moved us forward. Pamela Pasqualini, is Pam here tonight? Derek Savage. Derek, Deborah Watkins, one of our board chairs. Deborah. And last but not least, John Gray. Is John here? Finally, I want to again thank everybody here tonight for your support of NAMI Metro Baltimore, by buying a ticket, by sponsoring this event, by being a member. We really rely on your support to keep our programs free and to do our work. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce NAMI Metropolitan's unbelievable Executive Director, Sherry Welsh.
Good evening. Thank you, Larry. At this point, my job is to ask all of you to make sure that you have turned off or down your cell phones. You don't want to miss a minute of this program. I also want to echo again our gratitude to the volunteers, partners, and champions who have been a part of NAMI Metro Baltimore over the past 35 years. As you've heard, NAMI Metro Baltimore began as an all-volunteer organization, and today volunteers remain at the heart of everything that we do. It's been an honor to serve as the Executive Director of NAMI Metro Baltimore for the past 4 years. We have had 3 Executive Directors lead this organization in 35 years. Tonight, I want to recognize and thank the 2 individuals who preceded me. They are Kate Barinholt, who is now Executive Director of NAMI Maryland, and we have Linda Kohler, thank you, Kate and Linda, for guiding the way for us and for your dedication to this important mission. Now, it is my pleasure to tell you about our featured guest for the evening, Jelko Ivanek. We are so very fortunate to have Mr. Ivanek here tonight. He is an Emmy-winning actor who has played a wide range of roles and has appeared in both television and movies. I would read all of his acting credits, but we have to be out of here by midnight. A few of the productions he has been in include the television series Madam Secretary, the series Damages, for which he won an Emmy as Ray Fisk, and recently you may have seen him in the critically acclaimed film 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Yes. And guess what? Jelko knows Baltimore. That's because he portrayed Assistant State's Attorney Ed Danvers on the television series Homicide, Life on the Street. As an actor, Jelko has played many roles, but at the end of the play, movie, or television, he can go back to being himself. Tonight, 6 people are going to share their stories with you, but these are not roles that they sought, auditioned for, or rehearsed. They are not roles they can leave behind once the director calls cut. They are stories about their experiences as a person with a mental illness or as the loved one of someone with a mental illness. All of us probably know someone with a similar story. 1 in 5 people live with a mental health condition. Then add in friends, loved ones, co-workers, and others in our lives, and quickly we see that nearly everyone has someone in their life who has been affected by mental illness. Mental illnesses include a wide range of diagnoses and severity, just like many other diseases. Too often, though, if we hear anything about mental illnesses, they are the most extreme examples. Yet every day, millions of people struggle with depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or a wide range of other conditions. This is made worse because there's long been a stigma around speaking up about one's mental health, or even seeking treatment. We don't talk about fighting mental illness the same way we talk about other diseases. Too often we hide from it, leaving people to struggle quietly, and often to struggle alone. Tonight is our chance, your chance, to hear and see how each person, in their own unique way, has been affected by mental illness. Let us hear their stories now.
A quick word while we're setting up. Like a lot of actors, I'm really only comfortable in front of an audience when I'm pretending to be someone else. To which a friend of mine suggested I should pretend I'm playing the part of someone who's really comfortable in front of an audience. It's not working yet, but I really just want to say I'm here nonetheless for 3 main reasons. One is that I have very fond memories of Baltimore and the people of Baltimore from my time commuting down here on Homicide, Life on the Street. Second, I went to college with Mary O'Byrne, who just happens to sit on the NAMI board. It's very hard to say no to an old friend. And finally, I've had enough exposure among my own family and extended family and friends to the struggles of mental illness that the one thing I know for certain is that no one should have to or can possibly navigate all of that alone. And that the help and the resources of organizations like NAMI Metro Baltimore are not only vital, but potentially life-saving. So, here's a quote for you. Look closer, and you will see something extraordinary, mystifying, something real and true. Those are the words of Zelda Fitzgerald. She was a writer, socialite, wife of F. Scott Fitzgerald, and at the age of 30, diagnosed with schizophrenia. Well, tonight we take a closer look at mental illness. Depression, bipolar disorder, co-occurring disorders, schizophrenia, addiction, PTSD. What does mental illness feel like? The author William Styron said, "It causes my brain to endure its familiar siege, panic and dislocation. I can't begin to describe the actual dimensions of my torment." What does mental illness look like? It can look like a puzzle. Jagged edges, life in pieces. For the person who lives with mental illness, there can be confusion, anguish, but there can also be wonder and triumph. For the person who loves someone with mental illness, there can be loss and despair, but there can also be strength and resilience. Tonight, you'll hear 6 stories. Stories of heart-aching struggles to reassemble lives in pieces. Stories that spell out hurt and offer up hope. First, Gertie and her son. Gertie had a picture of how her son's life would turn out, like a perfect picture on the cover of a puzzle box. But he went off to college, and the picture fell apart. A shattered mind and shattered dreams.
In 1997, the movie Soul Food came out that emulated the black family in the 60s and 70s, with Big Mama being the glue that held the family together. One member of the family was Uncle Pete. Uncle Pete stayed in a room way down the hallway, isolated from everybody. His meals would be left on the floor at the door, and he would get it without being seen. The next generation knew of him, but had never seen him. It was obvious that Uncle Pete suffered with mental illness. In July 2008, my then 25-year-old son, Jason, had what is referred to as a psychotic episode and was diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. Growing up, Jason was an A student through elementary and middle school, and he graduated from Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, completing the college preparatory curriculum. Jason excelled in basketball, bowling, and baseball, obtaining the All-Baltimore City Baseball Honorable Mention. He attended Morgan State University, pursuing an electrical engineering degree. In the fall of 2006, Jason started his last semester prior to graduation. He was disturbingly full of suspicion of co-workers, professors, and fellow students. Although there were signs of paranoia throughout his adolescent years, I believed he would grow out of it as he got older. Jason became very concerned about an incident in which he had disposed of some X-rated DVDs in the dumpster at the bowling alley, and he felt everyone at the bowling alley knew he had disposed these DVDs, and they were all calling him disgusting names. He felt everyone was talking about him at school, the neighbors, and even church members. I believed he was extremely stressed. Number one, this being his last semester, and he would actually graduate. Secondly, he had joined this bowling league of really great bowlers, and he was assigned the anchor position with people he barely knew. And then suddenly, on October the 1st, my mom passed away. By late October, Jason agreed to get medical attention when we went to Walmart and a girl passed by. He thought she had called him a name. I told him no, she didn't, since I was there, and pleaded with him to get help. We went to the emergency room. So a time when I should have rightfully been grieving the loss of my mom, whom I loved dearly, my attention was drawn to my son, who was also slipping away from me. At that time, Jason was diagnosed with major depression and treated as an outpatient. He attended sessions with the therapist and psychiatrist for about 8 months before stopping both medication and therapy. He had met a girl. Over a period of almost 1 year, he spiraled down to a state of total paranoia, isolation, and delusions. Although early on he continued to work and go to school, he believed his co-workers were tapping his telephone and emails. He became very delusional, believing the CIA was watching him. Jason was in denial of his illness for many years. My daughter and I have been educated and empowered by the training and information we received from NAMI through attending their family-to-family classes. This program changed the outlook of my life. I received vital information about the various brain disorders, medications, and some of their side effects, coping strategies, comfort and encouragement from people who understood my new plight in life. I was not alone. I believe I am a success story because of NAMI, and thus refuse to hide behind the stigma of mental illness. Family members tend to carry guilt of their loved one's illness, believing we did something wrong. Shame, feeling others are accusing us of having neglected our loved ones or having somehow knowingly contributed to their illness. Fear that we will be accused of the same stigma facing our loved ones. We actually go through isolation with some family members and friends because of the stigma and lack of education. The saying, knowledge is power, is true to every family-to-family participant. I say that because I started the training with feelings of defeat, devastation, and more than likely sinking into a depression of my own. And I finished the classes reclaiming my life with renewed hope for myself and for Jason. Now, don't get me wrong, I was one who misunderstood this illness. Now I have so much more compassion for those who suffer with mental illness and those who are caregivers of the mentally ill. I have wonderful memories of my son participating in competitions, winning trophies, experiencing what I thought was a normal childhood. Jason was not extremely sociable. He had a few close friends. I remember being really happy when I would hear him laugh. Perhaps these were signs I should have looked into. Although there was a time when he had totally cut off communicating with family and friends, we refused to cut him off. We choose Jason. Jason lives with me, taking refuge in his room most of the time. We have very little conversation, but I take what I can get with sheer joy. Amazingly, he has taken an ordinary bike and actually motorized it. That's that engineering mind. And where he very seldom left the house for many years, he now takes brief excursions on his bike. Jason is my Beethoven, my Isaac Newton, my Socrates, my Hemingway, all brilliant men who suffered with mental illness. I believe, along with my faith in God, which continually fuels my hope in Jason's recovery, the greatest gift that I have to offer him is an abundance of love. I do it for me. And I do it for Jason. A poem. Mama would kiss and make it better. When you scraped your knee or bruised your chin, Mama would kiss and make it better. If you scratched your leg or bumped your head through the gentlest of gestures, she would kiss it, and it felt better. The smallest yet painful childhood wounds were made better by this motherly gesture. She'd just kiss it, and wow, it was better. Now the mind has escaped, circus and wires disarranged, her magic unable to bring peace night or day. Fix the knee in a snap, be the ointment for the scratch, even calm those daunting fears. But in the heart of this turmoil, she's reluctant to react. Her kisses have no effect. She watches the battles to resolve, the scattered thoughts gone amok, attempts to camouflage the confusion you are in. Walls become a macrame puzzle of life in a maze of scenarios that won't even fit. Oh, how she wishes she could kiss and it be better.
Dan understands mental illness from 3 points of view. He treats it on a daily basis because he's a psychologist. He can relate to his patients because he himself has lived with depression. And he knows just how deeply mental illness can sear into our lives because he has loved and lost his daughter to it.
It was 2005. It looked like it was going to be a great year. The last couple of years had been pretty good too. This looked like it was going to be even better. For one reason, I was enjoying my college classes more than ever. I had bright, enthusiastic students eager to learn about psychology. It felt good to be in the classroom with them. It felt good to be working with them on their projects. And then there was the book that I had published recently. It got some nice reviews, led to some invitations to speak at colleges and hospitals and conferences. So I was feeling pretty good about myself. And given the way things were going, I hardly ever even thought about that terrible period in my life from 15 years ago, when I went through a terrible depression, which was, without question, the most painful experience in my life. But I felt pretty confident now that all that pain and all that suffering was behind me and that the future looked bright. Then I started having problems sleeping. No matter how tired I was when I went to bed at night, I would lie awake for another hour or two. And this had me worried. I hoped it wasn't a sign of another depression coming on. Because of that earlier depression, sleep problems were the worst part of it. And it wasn't simply that I would have trouble going to sleep. It was that I would wake up at 4:30, 5 in the morning, unable to go back to sleep, but feeling awful. Well, sleep problems were coming back, and they were getting worse. And other signs of depression were beginning to emerge. There was the exhaustion. It didn't matter how much I rested, how many naps I took. I had absolutely no energy. And then I had no appetite. I simply didn't want to eat. There wasn't anything that looked good, that tasted good, nothing in the house, nothing at a restaurant, nothing at the store. My food had just lost its appeal. But then, just about everything else lost their appeal. The classes I enjoyed teaching, I no longer enjoyed teaching. Conversations with colleagues over a cup of coffee, that didn't sound good. I didn't want to do that. Joining friends for our weekly volleyball game, out of the question. That didn't sound good. I didn't even feel like going to a ball game or a movie. And the idea of enjoying reading a good book, absolutely out of the question. Because I couldn't concentrate long enough to get from the first sentence on a page to the last sentence on the page. So there was no question. My depression returned. And I was no longer feeling good about myself. I was really beginning to doubt everything. My confidence, my self-confidence was really shattered. I said that I'd enjoyed teaching, and then I went to a point where I no longer enjoyed teaching. Then I got to a point where I became afraid of teaching. I became so doubtful about my own competency as a professor. Yes, I had a PhD, but did I really deserve to be in that classroom? So I would approach the classroom each day wondering, would this be the day that some freshman student would ask me a very simple Psych 101 question and I would not be able to answer it? Or I would give such a ridiculously wrong answer. that it would be very clear that I was an imposter. I was a fraud. I didn't deserve to be in that classroom. Would I be laughed out of the class that day? And I even became fearful of just walking across campus because I might run into somebody who would want to ask me a question, present a problem to me, ask for some advice. Now, for most of my life, I've been a person that people could come to, and that felt good to do it. But not now. I did not have the emotional stamina to listen to anyone else's problems or concerns. In fact, there were days that when I was in my office, I would not even open my emails or listen to my voicemail because I simply couldn't handle anybody else's concerns. So I would just sit there, staring out the window. And then there was the guilt I felt over my marriage. I loved my wife, but I can tell you I was no good at showing it. The things that she and I had always enjoyed doing, they didn't sound good. I didn't want to do them. And I know she didn't feel any warmth coming from me. So, what was I good for? That was the question that I asked myself often. It looked like I was a failure as a professor, a failure as a friend, a failure as a husband. So, really, what did I have to look forward to? I was profoundly disturbed by that. I really felt that, life was just going to be one of despair and anguish. I felt so hopeless. I wasn't suicidal. I never really was suicidal, but death was on my mind a lot. And one of the thoughts I had very frequently was, my father had died at an early age of natural causes. Maybe that wasn't such a bad fate after all. These were the thoughts that kept rolling through my head as I lay awake night after night. But there was a little bit of light that would break through that darkness and that despair at times. And it was enough to illuminate a path that I recognized, a path that had led me out of my depression before, and a path that I knew I didn't have to go down by myself, because I realized there was no reason to feel ashamed or embarrassed about asking for help. And I knew as a psychologist who had helped others recover from their depression, that if I sought help, I had every expectation of recovery. And so that's what I did. I turned to my doctor, a therapist, my family, and my friends, and said, I need your help. I need your support. And it came. And when it came, I recovered. I returned to a life active, full of joy, full of love, full of hope. And that's what I would need to do this time too.
For some people, like Ellen, mental illness can be triggered simply by a life event. In her case, an encounter with a drunk driver. Shattered bones, surgery, physical recovery, followed by depression and PTSD. A deep descent and the courage to climb out.
In the myth of Eurydice and Orpheus, Eurydice is bitten by a viper, and she cycles down to the underworld. Orpheus, her lover, is distraught, and his grief is so powerful that he finds his way down to the underworld as well. He crosses the same river that Eurydice did, he passes the dog, and he finally meets up with Hades, the king of the underworld. Now, neither Orpheus or Hades actually ask Eurydice what she wants to do, but that's the story for another time. They make a deal. They broker a deal, and Hades says to Orpheus, you can have Eurydice back if you walk her back up the stairs slowly, and just trust that she's behind you. So Eurydice and Orpheus start to walk up the stairs together, and he hears her footsteps. And as they get closer and closer to the top, he realizes once he's almost to the surface of the earth that he can't hear her behind him anymore. So he thinks, well, I'll just peek behind me and see if she's there. So he does. And she disappears like that. and she gets instantly sucked to the underworld again. On February 17th, 2013, I was driving my Honda Fit home from a house concert outside of Denton, Texas while I was on tour. And in the car next to me, as my passenger, was my best friend Mike from high school. We have a very silly relationship. We joke a lot, kind of like brother and sister. So he was giving me a hard time about my conservative driving habits. I believe in the limit part of speed limit. Like, you should stop at that point. So he was giving me a hard time about it. He looked over at the speedometer and he said, okay, you were driving so slowly. You were going probably 10 miles below the speed limit. Can you pick up the pace a little bit? And we laughed as he was giving me a hard time. So I was laughing and I looked up into the rearview mirror, and the last thing that I saw before we were hit were the headlights of the car behind me. So I grabbed onto the steering wheel, but the car rolled and it smashed and it rolled and it smashed, and then it flew up in the air and then it landed on its roof and it skidded into a ditch. And all the glass shattered out and all my possessions were scattered all over the highway. And at the end of it, what I was left with was a collarbone snapped in two, a chemical burn on my face, and a very jumbled mind. It was the most violent thing that I've ever experienced. So after my body started to heal, my mind started to grasp with the existential trauma that I had experienced. This cone of blackness descended over me, and I started to have depression. And I started to have these terrible thoughts. The existential pain was so much worse than the physical pain, and I thought, I'll do anything to make this end. And I started to have these terrible ideas, and I went to a psychologist, and she said, this very benign phrase to describe these terrible things that I've been thinking, suicidal ideation, it sounds so beautiful. It's not a beautiful thing to think. And I described the other symptoms, and I had the classic symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, which surprised me because I thought only combat veterans got PTSD. But I had anxiety and depression and hypervigilance and this suicidal ideation that wouldn't go away. So I started to do therapy, I continued swimming, that's what I like to do to treat myself, and I started to get better, but it takes such a long time to do that healing process. And people who love me and people who care about me and people who didn't even know me would say things like, well, don't talk about the car wreck so much, don't dwell on it. Just try to get over it, move on, move on, move on. Just stay busy, get back to work, you'll get better. And I felt like Eurydice, sucked to the underworld. She's in this black place, and she's just looking around for the stairs, and that's what I was doing. And I felt like saying to Orpheus, look, I'll let you know when I'm ready to walk up the stairs. Just give me the time. I don't need to get over it as quickly as you think I should. And so what I do is I sing my way to the top of the stairs. Sometimes the stairs are really easy and I make a bunch of progress, and then sometimes I go backwards down the stairs. And sometimes I get close to the surface and think that I'm right there, and I get sucked even further down below. But I feel like if I just keep singing, eventually I'll reach the surface. I've been hanging on in the bottom of hell by the skin of these pretty white teeth and a fingernail. Is that a cavern wall, the stairs to heaven, or a wishing well? If you were looking through these tired eyes, you could hardly tell. I heard a promise and I made one to myself. Oh well. I sang a long sad note with each step down, just in case you had the time to follow me around. I crossed the river past the dog onto hallowed ground, and when I turned the walls it swallowed all my sounds. So I begged the muse to stay, but I see she had flown. I should have known. I should have known. I should have known. I should have known. send my hopes by first class post to the underground. I poisoned roots, sowed the seeds of doubt. I stopped the rain. I sparked a fire that I thought I could keep aflame. And I crushed the bones of the lies I told under my feet. I couldn't speak. Well, I said that once there is no reason to repeat. I've been hanging on in the bottom of hell by the skin of his pretty white teeth and a fingernail. I write it down, you eat it up, we get along. What were we thinking of? I write it down, you eat it up, we get along. We called it love. We called it love. We called it love. We called it love.
In the words of the poet Atticus, it was her chaos that made her beautiful. In the words of Roman Payne from The Wondrous, she was a free bird one minute, queen of the world and laughing. And the next minute she would be in tears like a porcelain angel about to teeter, fall, and break. This is Andrea. And in her own words, flights of fancy followed by a thud to the earth.
I am Drea, and I'm a diva. I was born in Chicago and raised throughout the state of California. I am the third of my mother's 4 and the fifth of my father's 9, but no matter where my biological placement is, I'm a diva. I have perfect diction and very proper manners. And a flair for the dramatics, just in case you guys haven't noticed yet. And that earned me the nickname of Miss Hollywood, hey? And I took that title to the bank because I thought I was the most talented and beautiful little girl that God ever put on this earth. But my big brother, he had plans for me. See, he was the only boy of my mother's clan, and he wanted a little brother. So my divaship had to be put on hold for a minute. See, I had to learn how to box. I had to learn how to stand up for myself. And he also taught me the gift of gab. I mean, I can talk my way into or out of just about anything. But he couldn't take my divaship for long, because you know what? I could box with the boys and win. I could play football and win. I could let my little hair down and bring out my tiara as soon as I get out of my pocket. And still be a diva. Life changed for me in 1979. Change of circumstance, change of scenery, change of lifestyle. I experienced a lot of trials and tribulation, as well as overwhelming trauma that resulted from severe physical, psychological, and sexual abuse. A series of moves had landed me in Atlanta, Georgia during the time of the city's mass murders of the city's black children. My parents battled over custody of me. And then my mom decided she wanted to be a cop. So I went from being a diva to inmate number 3. Over the years, I conquered my fears and decided that it was time to dig that diva out. I became a mom and twice a wife, and my fun side started coming out. I became overwhelmingly happy, outrageously creative. Would you guys believe I actually convinced my mom that I adopted a kangaroo to come play with my kids? And on top of that, the day that OJ ran, I was actually on the freeway that day. I told her I followed the cops, put the handcuffs on her. She said, "What?" I said, "It's all right, Mom. It's the diva in me." Whew. In 2003 through 2007, my world came crashing down. My diva kind of got silenced a little bit. See, my kids, they grew up and they left home. I didn't give them permission to do that. And then on top of that, I went to go talk to my therapist about my empty nest syndrome, and he said, "I got a question for you." I said, "What you got, Doc? What you got?" He said, "What's the longest you ever stayed awake?" I said, 7 days. He said, "You have bipolar disorder." I said, "What?" Miss Diva, gone. He said, "Take this pill, don't get fat, make an appointment, come back." Well, we see how that worked, huh? Needless to say, I tell you, I was obliterated to a shell of a person. But my mom, she was my light at the end of the tunnel. She said, "I want you to go and look it up." She said, "Go find out what bipolar is and see if you can dig yourself out of the stigmatic view that you got." Because you know what? I thought I was going to be locked away in the hug me jacket forever and a day, and they were going to put me in the hospital and I would never get out. All of that flights of fancy and that up and down and everything, I found myself in a huddle of suicidal ideation. The thoughts and the action, they just kind of put me in a place that I couldn't get out of for a minute. So I said, "Okay, Mom, I'll go look it up." Man, I tell you, the internet is a wonderful thing. Not only did I find so much stuff on how to learn how to take care of me, my diva grew wings. I went from California coast to the Baltimore Harbor. I said, "All right now, cicadas." Now anyway, I discovered NAMI. NAMI was my true saving grace. Through peer-to-peer, I learned mindless tools. No, it's mindfulness tools, not mindless tools. I learned some mindfulness tools, and the relapse prevention grid helped to take away a lot of that suicidal ideation. And I tell you, my diva was like, "Yes, true justice in the wellness way. Hello." I learned how to fly. It was wonderful. And when my mom found out, she said, "Go on, little girl." So today, my diva stands tall. She has graduated from college 3 times. I am an advocate. I am a published author. I am an entrepreneur and an award-winning professional speaker. But most of all, I am a diva, and I will always soar.
The next story belongs to Kundwani. Kundwani has experienced his own very real-life version of homicide live on the street in The Wire. Parents addicted to drugs, the death of his little brother, friends dropping like flies. In Kundwani's words, "What doesn't kill you makes you go crazy, if you live long enough."
So since I was at the age of 10, was my first time dealing with death when my little brother Fidel had died in a house fire. Later that year, I had an uncle who got murdered in East Baltimore. And ever since age 10, I've been losing friends and family members to either drug overdoses, violence, or mass incarceration. And when I went to college and I became a reader, and I became a writer, and I became a poet, and I started getting on stage telling my story, I realized how important it is to tell your story and how I was influencing other people to tell their stories and help other people, because I never knew how important it was But when I go to these schools and I travel inside the country, outside the country, and I have these students come to me and say, yo, Mr. Fidel, I love your work. Because of you, you know, hearing your story is the reason I didn't contemplate, is the reason I didn't go through with suicide. Or hearing your story makes me want to become a better person. Or saying the way that you dress and you act, and you can be an MFA student, and you can teach classes at the University of London, and you look just like me. You walk just like me. You talk just like me. So I can do it too. I'm going to share a poem with you all. But before I share, I want to give you all this quote by my mentor, D. Watkins. And he says, if you're not telling your story, then you're giving society the space to kill you. Memories can be beautiful, memories can be ugly. Sometimes I ask my memories, why didn't you love me? Memories, oh memories, they bring me much sorrow. But all I can do now is root for a better tomorrow. My teething ring was numb with madness and sadness. I had it bad growing up for new parents I used to recommend. Because whenever my father was blazed off heroin or plastered off gin, he would lurk late nights or broad day, pull out guns and rob my own friends. Memories. I remember these memories just like that. Laying on the living room floor watching Hey Arnold and Rugrats. 6 deep, the police came and burst through the back, fully equipped and strapped with black gats. It had to be bad luck, because I was the young black cat. My mother, she burnt pieces of my heart, and these missing pieces I will reflect on my art like the stars coming out in the afternoon on a summer day at 1:15. That's how she violated her son. I will always receive bad news like the 757. Sometimes I wish I was a stillborn. I could have went straight to heaven and dodged all of these bullets that pierced my little lungs from these 2 son of a guns. I just want to relive my childhood and have some real fun. I don't need confusing metaphors or similes to paint you all my extremities. I just ask that when I die, that you all remember me. I remember on April 14, 2014, I received a call from my little brother Antoine that altered my entire life. He told me that my best friend got stabbed. So I hung up the phone, I dropped to my knees and started praying. He called me back 10 minutes later and started crying. I said, don't do this to me, Twan. Why are you lying? He said, lying about what? Deke, he's gone. I leave Baltimore and I go to Virginia hoping to clear my mind. But how can I when all of my friends are dropping like flies? Never have we been sweet, but these hot biscuits on these streets are baking dudes like pies. It's hard to carry on when no one loves you. It's even harder when all your friends are floating above you. Lately, I've been dealing with constant wicked thoughts of suicide, because every time I look at a picture of my friends, I see fewer guys. I don't need confusing metaphors or similes to paint you all my extremities. I just ask that when I die, that you all remember me. I remember like it was yesterday. My heart skipped a beat when I heard my mother call my grandmother a dirty, trifling bitch and said, I hope you die in your sleep. So I said, enough is enough. I abruptly got up. Then God told me, shh, don't make one sound. Go lay your black narrow tail back down. It ain't over until I say it's over. I'm the DJ of this party life, and you know that I know when they ever shut the party down. I remember my grandmother bought me a bike on my 13th birthday. My mother then stole and sold it the next day so she could go buy some drugs from Ray Ray. If I could just steal one wish from Ray J, it would be to spend a Christmas with both of my parents like Craig and Day Day. No Friday after next, but I remember on Easter Sunday, I was nearly grazed by a bullet from the victims my father rode right in front of my steps. Nothing I'm speaking is made up. Yes, I came up rough. Nothing I speak in my art is to make me look tough. I might have a little frame, but my mind is too buff. My head is only but so big. Sometimes I wonder, how can it fit all this stuff? My mother will harass my grandmother for money so she could buy blow. Whenever Granny said, me no I blow, no goodbye go, it would lead to cold nights like Chicago. Cause my mother would then burst out all of our windows. She the reason that today while my grandmother is dying slow. And I'm sorry I can't fathom no more. I gotta go. And counting. Last month would have made 6 months that my mother has been clean. But don't get excited just yet, you'll comprehend what I mean. I said last month because this month she turned back to a fiend. Willing to get high by any means. See like my little siblings abandoned in the trenches of Baltimore stranded. My little dogs were too young to know about cues, but she left their hearts branded. You don't need a pen or pencil to construct this sort of math when all I'm trying to say is, I just want to relive my childhood my mom and my dad. I was supposed to die in the belly of the beast. My mother was not supposed to have me. That's why I will not stop showing my passion until I win Granny or Grammy. I was once kidnapped by the streets. I broke away and I'm free. I seen it all. I have no fear. But the brighter side to this story is that I'm still here. Walking on God's green earth, 10 toes down. I do the best that I can do. Yes, I failed, but I also conquered. My uncle told me, Conduana, you are a man, so don't ever look to blue for a clue. If the worst is bound to happen, in spite of all that you can do, running from it will not save you. Make sure you see it through. Just like Sophia, all my life I had to fight. A boy child is not safe in a family filled with spite. The struggles I faced as a child is what helps me now to maintain. So I'm a fight until the death, until I'm the lone victor who remains. That's why I volunteered tribute to this life which I call the Hunger Games. I was born into a war, and I've been brawling butt naked with nothing but my soul and my name. And from now on until my bones crawl cold, y'all will never have to check the forecast. Because forever, I will reign. Thank you.
And finally, Michael. Michael saw that his son's life was starting to unravel. So he and his wife got to work. They started searching for answers, for solutions, a confounding pile of puzzle pieces, looking for an outside edge, a frame from which to start. Smart doctor, good psychologist, a resource in NAMI Baltimore. Puzzle pieces came together, progress, setbacks. Still, they persevered.
11 years. That's how long it's been since my youngest son began struggling with mental health challenges. For the first 16 years of his life, it could be said that Sam was the easiest of our 3 sons. He was a straight-A student, had lots of friends, talented athlete and musician, had a great sense of humor, and was generally easygoing. It's been quite a journey over these last 11 years for Sam and for our entire family. As for diagnosis, there were many. Medications were added, eliminated, and combined in too many variations to count. Therapy has been constant, and we've been blessed to have the same therapist since the beginning. There were dark days and scary stories that could fill a book. But there have also been amazing moments throughout this journey. We've had the good fortune of meeting some incredible people because of Sam's challenges. I read the following story many years ago at another NAMI event, and I think it bears repeating because of where we are now on our journey. And it's called Welcome to Holland by Emily Kingsley. I am often asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability, to try and help people understand and imagine how it would feel. And I say it's like this. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks and make your wonderful plans. To the Colosseum, Michelangelo's David, the gondolas in Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's all just so exciting. After months of anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands. The airline attendant comes in and says, "Welcome to Holland." Holland, you say? What do you mean, Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy. All my life, I've dreamed of going to Italy. But there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland, and there you must stay. The important thing is, they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting place. It's just a different place. So you must go out and buy some new guidebooks. And you must learn a whole new language. And you will meet a whole new group of people you would never have met. It's just a different place. It's slower paced than Italy, less flashy than Italy. But after you've been there for a while and you catch your breath, you look around and you notice that Holland has windmills, and Holland has tulips. Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy. And they're all bragging about what a wonderful time they're having. And for the rest of your life, you will say, yes, that's where I was supposed to go. That's what I had planned. And the pain of that will never, ever go away, because the loss of that dream is a significant loss. But if you spend your life mourning the fact that you didn't get to Italy, you may never be free to enjoy the very special, very lovely things about Holland. So let me tell you about our Holland. Sam is doing really well. He's been living independently for 3.5 years. He takes care of all his household needs. He works one paid job at Mosaic Community Services, one volunteer job at Shepherd Pratt, and yet another volunteer job at Pearlstone. He's up every day before the sun and puts in a full day, Monday through Friday. He exercises most every day and is always reaching out to friends and family to complement his work with a good social life. What I'm most proud of is Sam worked really hard to become a certified peer recovery specialist. In that role, he brings lived experience to his job as a mental health worker. Whether leading groups or working one-on-one, Sam's coaching and support connects with people he works with because they can relate. And by virtue of where he is in his life, is living proof that there's continual hope for recovery. Sam lives to give. He serves others every day of his life, and for that we are grateful. And now, I'd like to present my son, my hero, Sam Teitelbaum.
Hello everybody, my name is Sammy T, or as my dad has called me since I was just a little child, Sammy Ding! I've had a long adventure with mental health and addiction challenges, including major depression disorder, where 10 minutes of walking through the school hallway felt like a marathon. Psychosis, where I was trying to concentrate in school, at the same time I was just trying to stop seeing my zipper move back and forth on my backpack when it really wasn't. And a sleep addiction where I wouldn't be able to get out of bed for many months, no matter how much I tried to. I take medicine, natural supplements, and vitamins to help me with my mental and my physical health. A lot of my mental health and addiction challenges have gotten better. But recently I've had an intense battle with obsessive compulsive disorder, or that name shortened, OCD. I even have a name for my OCD, Oscar. This terrifying illness causes me to not enjoy my life as much because I get worried, anxious, and scared that something bad happened. Then, I think of and sometimes act on unhealthy ways to make the worries, anxiety, and fears go away that waste a lot of time and make my OCD worse by doing things over and over again, checking things to make sure nothing bad happened, doing things extra, and more. OCD had taken over my life, and it has caused me things like tossing and turning in misery in my bed, unable to fall asleep as I worry about a disaster that might have happened. Feeling as though I'm living in a nightmare that I just can't wake up from. And even thoughts of wanting to kill myself. Sometimes when I feel like I have a horrible problem that just can't be solved. There were times when I wanted to give up with my OCD. Because of my OCD, I thought that I would need people to take care of me, help me, and do things for me in ways that would stop me from learning to do things myself. Like with putting my medicine in my weekly medicine boxes and putting the milk container top back on. I thought that I couldn't be independent with functioning in the many things I do in my life. My mom came over to my house, but refused to do anything for me. Instead, she gave me a pep talk and made me face my fears and do it myself. She also taught me the swift turn put away technique, where I do something really fast without thinking too much about it, and then I don't do it over and over again, check it, do it extra, or do other things my OCD tells me to do, no matter how much I feel like I have to or want to. I still use this technique, and I've learned many other strategies that help with my OCD. I've made so much progress with my OCD. I sometimes keep track of how much time things take and get very excited when I set a new record or do something really fast. In the past, when I would put the milk container top back on, sometimes I would put it on, take it back off again, put it back on, take it back off, and do this over and over again, sometimes about 15 times. Now, I'm really good at doing it once, really fast, and then leaving it on. In the past, I had much more things like panic attacks, worrying about things like, what if I was driving unsafe when I was driving really fast around the turn by accident? Whereas now I have less of these things and feel more at peace. Recently, during a lot of my time, I am focusing on not doing the things that my OCD tells me to do. For example, when it tells me to go back and wash my toothbrush extra because it's not clean enough after I already finished washing it, I try to make the free choice not to, no matter how much I feel like I have to listen to that OCD thought. My story can give hope to others struggling with OCD and other mental illnesses and addictions. I had an extremely hard time functioning in life, but over time I learned to. I faced many problems that I felt were impossible to solve, but I made it through them. I may have just had to use my imagination. So please have hope and try not to hurt yourself or others. You can recover and be happy. Now that my OCD has gotten so much better, it has left me with a life-changing awareness as I do things during the day, like doing computer work, which leads to a more meaningful and free experience. When I sense that someone else is struggling with a mental health challenge that I can relate to, I sometimes feel a strong connection to that person. They are near and dear to my heart, and a friendship is sometimes developed based on the mental health challenges that we share in common. My personal experience with mental health and addiction challenges led me to the job of my dreams, where I try to help others struggling with similar challenges. I'm certified as a peer recovery specialist. I use my personal experience with mental health and addiction challenges to help others because it helps me to relate, understand, and have compassion for what other people are going through. I look forward to the days where I can feel truly happy with my mental health and addictions. This might look like some of my symptoms going away, and then other thoughts or symptoms that I feel more free to experience without them bothering me. I wish to stop wasting time doing things extra or worrying about bad things that might happen because of OCD. Thank you, and I wish everyone true happiness.
enough stories of your own. They may be similar to ones you've heard tonight. No two puzzle pieces are alike. No two stories are alike. Some end on an uplifting note, and others take unexpected and tragic turns. Some of you may know this with great heartache, and our hearts go out to you. But most stories are works in progress. Tonight you heard elements of hope in the stories of Gertie, Dan, Helen, Andrea, Kanwani, Michael, and Sam. At times they may have despaired, but they kept going. William Styron said, "Everyone must keep up the struggle, for it is always likely that you will win the battle, and nearly a certainty that you will win the war." So, if you live with mental illness, if you love someone who does, don't give up. You'll find open hearts and real help and steadfast hope through the love of your family and friends and through the people and programs of NAMI Metro Baltimore.
Your wisdom, your talents, and your experience to life for us. We are grateful. I want to take a minute to thank our narrator extraordinaire, Mr. Jelko Ivanek. Not only was he our narrator this evening, but he also contributed to the script, which was written by David Drake, directed by Nancy Landrum, but he also provided heart to everything that we did tonight. So again, Jelko, we're so very grateful. I want to thank our board members tonight who presented. I want to thank again our exceptionally hard-working event committee, our very generous sponsors, Center Stage. Is this not a wonderful video? And lastly, we want to thank all of you for sharing this evening, this 35th anniversary celebration with us. As you may have guessed, our goal this evening was to highlight hope and courage. I'm humbled not only by our storytellers this evening, but by the 270 volunteers who every day help make NAMI Metro Baltimore programs possible. And now I want to introduce Mary O'Byrne, Vice President of NAMI Baltimore's board, and a key person in helping us put this program together tonight. Mary?
Sherry. Everybody say amen. Amen. Everybody say amen. Amen. What an evening. I also want to thank an old friend, Jelko Ivanek, for volunteering to be part of our 35th anniversary celebration. Jelko, thank you. You made us a uniquely special evening. I'm very honored to be part of this program tonight, but more importantly, I'm so fortunate to be part of NAMI Metro Baltimore. I had the opportunity to hear Michael speak when he was at a gala event back in 2013, and I walked up to a member of the board and said, I want to be on your board. The support that our organization gives families and those with mental illness is just simply remarkable. And Baltimore is so lucky to have such an active and innovative chapter. I know that the board is grateful to you, Sherry, for your leadership. And we're grateful to the staff, Caitlin Mulrine, Jamie Eversall, Clarissa Taylor-Jackson, and Susie Bradford. And running so many programs and bringing this event to life with the committee and the other members of the board. And of course, the dedicated volunteers, every last 270 of you, who are the heart and soul of the NAMI programs. As Sherry mentioned earlier this evening, and Steve mentioned earlier this evening, and Brendan mentioned earlier this evening, and Larry and all of us, we couldn't do this without you. We couldn't do this without the support of you and other members of the community who understand and value this unique resource. All of our public programs are offered for free. All of our public programs, which you've heard from so many of our speakers tonight, they are all offered for free. So we really rely on you and people like you to continue to bring these programs to life for more and more people in the Baltimore area. I mean, really, when you think about it, there are a few things that are more important than one's mental well-being. Without help, people can fall into hopelessness and homelessness and addiction and isolation. Your generous support of NAMI Metro Baltimore can help people who are struggling to find their footing and provide support to families who are confused and scared and overwhelmed. In this year, our 35th year, I'd like to ask each and every one of you to consider making the most generous gift you can so that you can support NAMI Metro Baltimore. I want you to show us just how much you really care about the programs and the services that we offer and what they mean to you. Your gift will touch so many lives. You heard it tonight. We've reached over 9,000 people in the greater Baltimore area in the last year. 9,000 people. And there's so many more to reach. As you already heard earlier, 1 in 5 people experiences a mental illness, and fewer than half of them get any care at all. Your gift can help us break down the stigma and also enable us to welcome those who don't have the resources to get help elsewhere. As you leave tonight, there are folks out there with clipboards. And they're looking for you. And we really hope that you're looking for them too. So I want to say thank you all so much for coming this evening. Thank you for listening to our stories. And thank you for caring. Good night.